Hello, hello, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Next Gen Planners Commute with myself, Rohan Sivajoti, and today I am joined by Andy Coles. Good morning, Andy.
Morning, Mohan. How are you doing?
Do you know what? I'm really well. The sun's out. It's looking good, isn't it? Hump day, they call it, almost there, but of course we've got a bank holiday, which is excellent. So, how about yourself, mate? Do you have any plans for the long weekend? I take it going away somewhere nice.
No, we have in our street. We're going to have a mini VE day celebration where we're going to sit on outside the front and just have a chat. So, I mean, it doesn't sound exciting, but when we've done nothing for 7 weeks, actually, it's something I'm quite looking forward to. So, and as you say, the sun's out today, so it doesn't half make a difference when the sun comes out. It just cheers you up a little bit.
Doesn't it just? Doesn't it just? Actually, we've got exactly the same thing. Sat out on the front gardens, chatting with neighbours, sitting in the sun. It'll be okay. It'll all be good. So, what do we have on the show today? Well, we've got our regular Wednesday phone-in. I say phone-in. I haven't seen a phone during one of these phone-ins, but it's a phone-in. And it's a Q&A, and it's on all things paraplanning. So we've basically got the who's who of the paraplanning world in today. So we've got Caroline Stewart, Richard Allen, Rebecca Tuck, Joe Campbell. We've also got Chris Budd's financial wellbeing thought for the day. I believe we have a quiz as well. I think. Yeah, we do. We do. Okay. But right now we're just going to head over to the new Model Advisor news desk with Will Robbins, and I threw some shade at yesterday, and he's already called me out on it. So Will's going to be with you for the next 45 minutes.
45 minutes, yeah.
Do enjoy.
Okay, thanks, Rohan. So quick, bit of markets. Overnight markets are up overseas, oil prices, but just interesting sort of drug news. Pfizer, I think, the drug company, said it and its German partner had begun delivering doses of an experimental coronavirus vaccine for human testing. Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, and it climbed 6%. I mean, experimental antibody cocktail of COVID-19. You're going to see a lot of these. I'm speaking to some sort of managers who do a lot in healthcare. They've said the vaccines are a long shot, but you're going to keep seeing these news. They've lowered the bar to entry for these tests. So every time this happens, the company will announce that test happening. It will raise their stock, and then a couple of days later, the probability is that it won't work, and it'll come crashing down again. But anyway, there we have it. There we go. But some good news for oil and things like that. Study from Boring Money. It's interesting on the number of people who get advice. So they claim from their study that 9% of adults get advice. Sorry, in the UK, 9% of adults get advice. 28%, so almost a third, report they used to get advice and no longer do. So obviously the difference between those who are, I guess, ongoing clients, people who've been on and off over time, and sort of, very good good satisfaction results and things like that. But just this sort of 9%, it seems like a low figure. I don't know how you feel about. I'd love to know what you think about that. Whether sort of what you thought, how big you thought your profession was, or how many people you think it should be reaching. But that's something we're writing about today. I'm maybe speaking to Holly, who's sort of behind the Boring Money and behind that survey later on today for a podcast, and ask her. So any questions you've got, just pop them over to me or in the chat. This morning on New Model Advisor, we're kind of majoring not so much in sort of the news, but our own articles from our special edition this month. I sort of talked about that, get a bit of it yesterday, but we've got them up properly, and it's all about active and passive. But it's just interesting. So we've got a few articles up there today. One of them sort of roundtable that was really interesting, looking at sort of why advisors blend the two. Bit of ESG in there, talking about ESG, not BFG, but ESG. A bit of talking about Woodford and some very honest account from an advisor about how she basically kept on hanging on to Woodford and keeping the faith for a long time after she should have done. And some other things, but it was a good debate. They've got a roundtable debate up there, and a long piece by a guy called Frank Talbot, who works at Citywire, who's incredibly knowledgeable about investment, talking about active management, basically looking at the March sell-off, in which it looks like active managers didn't do as well as they did even in the Brexit sort of sell-off, so to speak, a few years ago. and just asking a few tough questions of why that might be, sector by sector, is extremely thorough. That's going up this morning. But basically the news there, so to speak, or the story there is about tech. Tech is just getting bigger. A lot of people, that rising tide lifts all boats, and obviously a tide that goes out has left people stranded, and that's what's happened with COVID, except for tech. And tech is what has made it hard for active managers to outperform. And now and weirdly, at a time of crisis, when a lot of active managers would be saying this is their time to shine, tech is making it harder still, and will continue to do so. So very, very interesting. Maybe get to understand what that sector as much as you can. Because of course we've seen bubbles burst before, but very interesting story. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Will. That's a really interesting number, 9% of people are actually getting active advice. I think as a profession that we should be doing better, because we can help more people than that. The only problem I've got is that I don't know the answer of how to solve it. But it's fascinating to see that so few actually get advice. Now we'll move on to Chris Budd's financial wellbeing tip of the day. Morning, Chris.
Morning, Andrew. How are you?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, very
excellent.
Well.
I've got
Are
a few.
You feeling better than yesterday?
I am, thank you, mate. Yeah,
good.
I am. As Rohan said, it's a lovely sunny day, and we have our days, don't we? We have our ups and downs. I've got a few thoughts about how we can reach a lot more people, but that isn't really my tip of the day. Maybe that's a discussion for another day. The IFW is certainly trying to do some stuff with the financial coaching COVID response. So if anybody wants to check that out and have a look at some of the blogs on the IFW site, there's lots going on, which is for the general public, not just clients of IFAs. Anyway, the financial wellbeing tip of the day is a bit more light-hearted and tongue-in-cheek. This time, I'm going to talk to you about the concept of retreasuring. This is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's based on good financial well-being theory. I've talked before, one of the kind of starting points, I think, of financial well-being is that buying stuff gives you short-term well-being. Retail therapy does give a little shot of well-being, that financial well-being junkie thing I talked about last week, but it's only short-lived. So how can we get longer-term well-being? Well, what we could do is, if retail therapy does give us a little shot of well-being, why don't we get rid of all our stuff and then buy it again? Retreasuring. Isn't that a brilliant idea? So what happens is, this is a technical bit, okay, bear with me, a bit technical, some long words. We go through the first phrase of buying stuff, which is called treasure. Then it becomes paraphernalia, until eventually it becomes clutter. Now, the rate at which it goes from treasure to clutter is different for every item, and that is your treasure clutter coefficient. And you need to work out that for each different item that you own, to work out how long you should keep it for the optimum moment before you then get rid of it. And then that becomes a process of treasuring and stops everything becoming that really awful thing, knickknacks. So that's just, it does actually work in theory. It's not really that serious, but there is actually some good theory behind it, that we do actually get a very short-term bursts of well-being from stuff. So don't keep buying stuff and instead save it up for when we can have experiences again.
Very good, Chris. Very good indeed. Can you give us an example of a time you've sold something and rebought it?
I come from the do as I do, not what I say school of financial planning.
Awesome. No, I like that though. It's good to sort of reconnect with some of your possessions and stuff. I can see that. That's good. I like that. Thank you, sir. Thank you as ever. Excellent. Oh, look at this. We're bang on time today. We're flying here. Right. So today we are now going to go to our Q&A. And as mentioned earlier, I have, if you could just shout good morning after each of these, that would be super. Caroline Stewart from Paraplanner. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, no, that was good. Richard Hallam, you're going to have to up that from the Paraplanners.
Good morning, everybody.
Rebecca Tuck from Magenta.
Morning.
And Joe Campbell from Parasols.
Morning, everyone.
Morning. Oh, that was good. God, we're well cheery today. This is really good. Spot on. Right. I'm going to pick on one of you to start with. So let me pick on, I'll pick on you, Richard, just to start with, if that's okay. I'm quite interested in the quality of files that you see in the early stage of the advice process. And what are the things that the firms that you've worked with, what are the things that they've done to make files easier to present to you and to understand? You know, what is best practice in that space?
Yes, good question. We're quite lucky because most of the firms we've worked with for sort of 7 or 10 years. So we've evolved with them over time. But if I had to pick one thing that is constant that we have to go back and seek more information on, is those soft facts. So working remotely as we do, we never get to see the clients, don't know who they are basically. And so we're presented with cold data. And it's those soft facts that sometimes are in the advisor's head and we've got to kind of suck them out sometimes that really allow us to bring a case to life. So if there's one thing, it'd be the soft facts.
Soft facts, spot on. And is that something that resonates with yourself, Joe?
Absolutely. I think objectives, clear objectives are what make or break a good file. Really clear, deliverable objectives, regardless of all the other paperwork and everything else. If you don't have those, you don't have a good file. Good
answer. Good stuff. Okay, Caroline, I'm going to come with a slightly different question to you. Otherwise, we're just going to keep getting the same answer. Well, we're just going to keep going over ground, right? It's going to be tough for the last person to answer questions, isn't it? So, I guess like paraplanning has, evolved massively over the years. We've had some people come on here and talk about how just practically superheroes now, and like, we just it's weird to think of a time before paraplanners now. I mean, there's so many different interpretations of the role. What do sort of you see as the essence of paraplanning, I guess?
Well, the essence I see, it's taking the client objectives, taking the file, taking all of that information and constructing a plan with the planner, whether that's outsourced or, in-house. The essence, I think, depends very much on the business that the paraplanner is working in as well, because paraplanning is so different from one firm to the next. I know probably what my view of a paraplanner is will be quite different to, some other people. When I was in-house, for example, I used to go to client meetings all the time. I would have a relationship with that client. They would quite often contact myself or the client services administrator. So, I think it's anybody really who's taking the file from cradle to grave, from the moment that they meet that client to the moment that the report goes out, whatever format that is, and creating the plan. But it's horses for courses. It's whatever works in that business, really.
Okay, super, good stuff. And how about yourself, Rebecca? Is the only in-house paraplanner on today?
Yeah. So I actually had a bit of a chat with someone at the door yesterday. I had a delivery and I think everyone's just like craving human contact. And we ended up having a natter for a couple of minutes and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a paraplanner." And I didn't have the energy yesterday, to be honest, to go into it any more than that. And I saw him kind of gloss over and that was fine. And then when I came back to my laptop, I just thought, I'm going to have a Google a minute. Like if you just type in paraplanner, what comes up? And I was a bit offended, actually. I'm not going to lie. A lot of the immediate responses were it being a junior administrative role, and I don't think that it's that at all. I think particularly the way we work at Magenta, it's a lot more of a collaborative partnership. The planners are brilliant at that bigger picture stuff. I must admit, I don't struggle too much with the soft facts. If anything, I get an abundance of that. And then it's up to me from a more kind of technical standpoint to marry all of that up and analyze it and dig down and figure out, what we're going to do with it as a team.
Mm-hmm. Okay, super, good stuff. And if I could just stay with you for a second, Rebecca, what is it you absolutely love about paraplanning?
It's that problem solving aspect of it. Absolutely. I absolutely love being able to take something that is a bit of a mess sometimes. We've had a new client recently and I cannot figure out why he's got the number of plans that he does. We're talking about 8 different policies that are all set up at pretty much exactly the same time to do exactly the same thing. And so you're wondering why on earth have they made it so complicated? And so to take something like that, to analyze it, to really drill down and figure out what they're trying to achieve and how you can do that in a more simplistic, more suitable way is really rewarding for me. I just love that process.
Brilliant, good answer. Now, Joe, I'll come to you with this one. In terms of diversity, and from what we can see across the profession, across the industry, paraplanning seems to be sort of leading the way on that front. it just looks far more diverse than the rest of the advice community, investment management community, and everything else. What sort of is it about paraplanning that seems to appeal to a more diverse audience?
I just think there's a wide range of skills in paraplanning. There's something that appeals to everybody. So actually, if you want to be client-facing, an in-house paraplanner, if you're a real people person and you like to get involved with people, there's aspects there. If you're just a giant nerd and you want to sit back and do a lot of analysis, there's aspects there. So I just think it reaches a wider audience, and I don't think it's about diversity so much as that happens as a secondary thing. I think the profession itself is just, you know, so appealing once people know about it. It's got so many great attributes. Why wouldn't you want to be a paraplanner? I mean, I would say that, obviously.
Of course, good stuff. Okay, so we've had a question come in here from Matthew Aitchison. I'll come to yourself with this one, Caroline, if that's okay. So, how does outsourced paraplanning fit in and support an ongoing relationship-led service rather than a transactional one?
I think it's all about communication, really, and getting the paraplanner involved right from the start again, because obviously with outsourcing, the paraplanner is not necessarily going to be sitting in that, well, they won't be sitting in that meeting that you're having with the client. So the key is to make them feel like they were there, they know exactly what was going on and what was said and what the client wants to achieve, which again goes back to having a client file that's got all of the relevant soft information. But I think, you know, having a paraplanner, an outsourced paraplanner can still work with a relationship-led arrangement, because I know some of the clients that I work with, you know, I feel like I'm part of their team. Just because I'm not actually sat in their office with them doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not part of their team. You'll still be the go-to person for that. So I think, you know, it's making sure that you're having that communication, whether that, you know, that's face-to-face or over the phone or, you know, with video calling. But it's you know, just because they're not necessarily sat there with you doesn't mean that they're not, you know, they're still, you know, part of your team. So it's just making sure, again, it's going back to what everyone else has said, it's having that really good client file so that the paraplanner knows that client, knows your relationship with that client, understands that relationship and what they're trying to achieve.
Okay, excellent, good stuff. Thank you. And Richard, so you were obviously cheating in advance of lockdown in that you had remote teams already, and you know, this is just a piece of cake for you, isn't it, right? So what have you sort of learned additionally through lockdown? Are you going to be, I don't know, do you already add video calls with advisors? Is that something that you're looking to do?
Yeah, I mean, that is business as usual for us because we've done this for many, many years. But having said that, you can't be complacent. So we've had to be a bit more adaptable in the last 2 months or so because our clients, advisors, their requirements have changed a bit. So we've gone from in the first week helping them transition from working in an office to actually setting up remote workers and working out what, you know, VPNs are and all that kind of stuff, which is not something I thought I'd ever be doing, but that's what our clients needed. So we had to adapt to that. And now we're adapting a bit more in doing a lot more video calls with them. I think that the danger is not to overreact and go into pure reaction mode. You know, no one knows what unlockdown is going to look like or what the period after that looks like. So it's impossible to start to predict the future right now. I think it's just a case of being adaptable and being flexible.
Okay, good answer. And it just sticking with yourself there for a second, Richard, in terms of another question that's come through there. By the way, the question's on fire today. There's loads in there. Is it time for a level 6 paraplanning qualification? What do you think of the current state of paraplanning qualifications?
Personally, I don't think much of them at all. I don't really believe in separate paraplanner qualifications. Every good paraplanner I've ever met wants to be as qualified as the advisors they work with, and they're more qualified than the advisors they work with. So they go for chartered, they go for certified, they go for IMC, they go for STEP. I've looked at the paraplanner qualifications, haven't done any of them, nor of my team. I think a little bit of diversion to the mainstream qualifications. So level 6 paraplanning, I've got no idea how you would assess somebody to be a level 6 paraplanner. No idea.
Good answer. Okay. There you go. Well, there's some headlines for you today. Does anybody else want to jump in on that one?
I'd probably echo that. If that question had come to me, I'd probably just said to do the CFP. I've done it, and I thought that it was really, really valuable. It was hard work, but it was really valuable in really understanding more of that client process and how it all fits together. And I think the more overview you've got of where you fit into something, no matter how wide reaching your part of that might be, you will always do a better job because you know the value of it.
Good answer. Okay, cool. And I just want to talk a little bit now about the future of paraplanning. So I saw something that the Verve Group of Parasols put out recently about 2030 and having a look at suitability reports of the future and this kind of stuff. Jo, could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, if you've seen us on social media, you might have seen that what we've done is we've been saying for a long time, you know, if only we could pause the world for 10 minutes for a couple of hours and we'd get all of the plans that we had in our heads out there. And actually, awkwardly, lockdown did that a little bit for us. So the plans that we had for the next 10 years, we've kind of accelerated and brought forward. So it's all about having a more immersive experience with your Paraplanner, changing suitability reports to make them much more interactive and much more in line with current tech and how people use things. So, you know, apps and links and videos and that kind of thing, and not just a big long Word document. So there's just lots of things. We're trying to cram 10 years worth of innovation into around 2 weeks, which is when I think the world will go back to normal, just because I want it to.
So there you go. So we're all out of lockdown in 2 weeks, Jo. That's fine. That's cool. Okay.
That's your headline, Will.
No worries. And Caroline, just to answer another question that's just sort of come to me is around that interaction between advisors and paraplanners. I know from a personal perspective, I can be like annoying as hell in terms of notes and whatever else. How can advisors make that interaction easier for you guys?
It's just making sure that your file tells a story, really. So I've been working with some clients and we've been kind of redoing their fact find, and it's making sure that they've got lots of room to detail all of that soft information. So whether that's in a file note or whether that's in a fact find, but it's making sure that, you know, you have a start, middle and end so that you can see where they are now, where they're trying to get to, and then you can obviously help that planner create the end so that they can get to the end goal. So it's kind of try and be as organized as possible. I know that obviously that's not, you know, a skill that everybody has, but yeah, trying to make sure that your file is as organized and constructed as well as possible so that, you know, when someone picks it up, they can actually see, you know, who the client is, what they're trying to achieve, what, you know, what floats their boat really, so that then you can put all of that together to create that plan and get that, you know, make that client a real person for you.
Super. Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to work on Rich Ellis's question a little bit there that's come through. So, Rebecca, if I just come to you for a second, when you've been meeting with existing clients recently, perhaps to present some information, that kind of stuff, and it's obviously been via Zoom, has that been easier or more difficult?
Easier, I think. I've been on a couple of Zoom calls with clients in the last couple of weeks where normally I wouldn't be in the meeting. I think it echoes a bit what Caroline was saying. You know, in an ideal world, you'd be there. You want to know everything that you can know about this person in order to do your job as well as you can. And tech can really help with that. So, you know, getting in on the Zoom meetings can help with that. You can see who you're writing to. You can hear the words straight from the horse's mouth, if you like. And that's obviously going to give you a better understanding of who they are and what they want, and then what you need to do to help. Something that we've also done when we were in the office is we've got this magic pen. I don't know what it's called. Maybe Gretchen, if you know what it's called, you can pop it in the chat. But it basically records the meeting, and you write your notes, and the audio and the handwritten notes kind of go hand in hand. So if you can't be in the meeting, I guess it's the same if you're recording your Zoom meetings. You know, at least you've got something that you can then refer back to that the client has actually said, rather than relying on the planner to write it all down in a way that everybody understands. Obviously, they still need to write some stuff down, but I think the tech can really help kind of partner up with that to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Super. Good answer, Rebecca. Thank you. And just sticking with yourself and just a quick 5-10 seconds from each of you. What are you most looking forward to once lockdown is over?
I'm really looking forward to seeing my family, actually. And for anyone who doesn't know, I work with my mum. My mum works at Magenta as well. And so this is the first time in years, probably, that I've actually had a chance to miss her. And so I'm really looking forward to just, you know, going over, seeing them, seeing my brother, all the kids, my dad, having a nice big family barbecue. I think that'd be lovely.
Yeah, lovely. And yourself, Joe?
Exactly the same, isn't it? It's kind of those things that you took for granted, and it's very interesting what Chris was saying earlier. I thought the little things that you took for granted, you know, being able to get a takeaway coffee or just being able to go out for a walk whenever you want and not just limited. Those little things of just getting, you know, starting to I know it sounds like a cliche, really appreciating the small things in life again. So I'm looking forward to everything.
Good. And Richard?
Going to a place called Arcal Molly, which is the best ice cream shop in the world, and seeing my kids, and in that order.
Very good. And Caroline, finally?
Same thing, exactly the same. Friends and family, missing them heaps. So yeah, same thing.
Good. Well, thank you ever so much. That was a really, really useful conversation. So thank you all for coming on this morning. Really appreciate it. Righto. So where are we now? We are over to Mr. Dan Graham for a competition. Dan, how are you doing?
Good morning, sir. I'm okay. Thank you very much.
Good. Go for it, mate.
Right, I will have to breeze through this. So last week I was just aiming this at you, but this week I'm just going to open up to everyone in the chat. Some of these are quite hard. So can everyone see that? Can you make sure that you can see my answers as well? Okay, so
your photos get worse every week.
Yeah, I know. That's like the name of the game, mate.
Right.
So yeah, just a quick disclaimer, I don't watch films. I don't watch anything before 2000, anything like that. So some of these might be a bit weird. Can anyone tell me what movie this is? Question 1.
Is it? It looks a bit like Top Gun. Is it Top Gun?
Top Gun?
I don't know. Can't see. Don't know.
Okay, this might be harder than I actually thought to be. Massive film, a franchise. We've got 8 films.
Oh, you've lost me there. Harry Potter, is it?
I can see loads of people in the chat kicking themselves.
I think Jessica got it. Hiram was no way near. That's cool. Right, go on. Next one. Next one.
Next, we've got this one. Question 2. What do we think this is?
These are hard. These.
What the hell?
It helps if you like do that with your eyes and lean back a bit.
Oh yeah, that does help.
It does help. I think I've got some in the chat. Hang on, let's have a look. See if
Men in Black, Reservoir Dogs.
It's nowhere as good as them. It's super.
Okay.
Next one. This one's a hard one, to be fair. I don't think anyone will get this one.
It kind of looks like The Matrix. Yeah, I was going to say
The Matrix.
Yeah.
Actually, Taken. Nearly as good as The Matrix.
Man, this is hard this week.
Oh, you should get this one. You should get this one.
Like, do the squinting.
Yeah, do the squinting thing. Lean back a bit.
Oh yeah, I know.
Go on.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yes, yeah. Nice one. I like how you just put Wolf Will.
I couldn't type quick enough. It's small.
Think of the colours in this one.
Up. Is it up?
No. It is. That's where the colours came from. This one.
So.
Okay.
Will, everyone can hear you, so you might as well just shout them out.
I was only 5 questions too early.
I do this in normal quizzes as well. It's absolute disaster. Yeah. Oh yeah.
One of the biggest films of all time, I think. I've never seen it but.
Oh.
Breakfast Club.
Breakfast
Club. Good shout.
It's my era, that.
I'm looking in the
like one of your front covers, that Will.
Yeah.
Anyone have a guess?
No idea, Dan.
Come on, these are
nice story. Yeah, good.
Simpsons.
Right.
This one's quite tough as well, actually. This one really helps if you squint your eyes.
There's some shout floods.
Yeah. Well done, yeah. Oh, I don't think anyone will get that one.
Oh wow!
Good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Shout. And final one.
Ross
Jeffries has got it.
Oh, yeah.
Or should I say Tiger Cat?
Dancing film.
Yeah, dancing film.
Good work. I'm sure that Ella got at least 2 of those. Bonus 300 points.
Yeah, what is the highest grossing box office film of all time?
I would say Toy Story 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they reopened it to get more money, didn't they?
£2.7 billion and
can I give you a fact? A fun fact, a trivia about that. My friend wrote the theme tune to the advert for Endgame.
Really?
That is it was amazing. Yeah.
Right, we'll stop bugging everyone now.
Well done, Dan.
Back things over to you, mate. Thanks for playing, everyone.
Oh, I'll start talking again now. Sorry about that. Thanks for that, Dan. Well, I managed to get Top Gun, but nothing else. So I don't know what that says about how many movies I see. But thanks very much for tuning in today. We are back tomorrow with a bank holiday special with Gretchen Betts and Alistair Walker talking all things gaming. Well, Gretchen talking about craft and Alistair talking everything about gaming. So have a great day, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.